Hi, and welcome back. I'm Alex Wasner, and today we're going to be talking about routing in Lavaca. We're going to finish building out this profile view so that we actually have the user's profile information here. And when you click on one of the profile images, you'll be navigating to the correct food view. So we're going to reuse this same food view, same functionality of liking on a different page. So let's hop into the code. All right, so first we're going to open up our profile view, HTML and profile view JavaScript, set them side by side. Let's focus on the HTML, the markup first. So first we want to have kind of the upper area of the profile view, which will be kind of the user's information, how many likes they have, how many followers they have, that sort of information. So we'll just name that section with a class of upper area. All right, so down here is going to look very similar to what we have in food view. Is this user with the username? So we'll go ahead and add that in there. And we'll actually put the username down a level. Just for temporary sake. That'll probably end up being the user's first name and their last name. We'll make this a large version. So I have a class in there that makes the profile image large. You can see that in theme, profile image, class of large. So it just makes it a little bit bigger. All right, and then we'll also add the stats. So this is how many followers they have, how many posts they've made. So we'll add that in there, div class of stats. And we'll have a div with a class of posts. One for followers and one for following. All right, so for post, if we look at our data structure, which is going to be modeled from the same mock data source of data, we have this user section down here where they have username, first name, last name, and some information about them. So we've got this posts area. So we'll look at that and just throw in posts dot length. That will give us the length of how many posts they have. And we'll go ahead and wrap that in a span just for styling purposes. And then we'll add an H2 with images, that's how many images they have. And we'll do a very similar thing for followers and following. For this one, we'll look at the followers and following. So you can put that in here for following, followers. All right, and let's save that and see if that looks how we expect it to. Oh, yep, so we've got an image up here. This has images, images, images. We want to make that the correct stuff. And since we're not passing in any data, it's not rendering anything. So let's go into our template again and make this say following and followers. Yep, so we have images, followers, following. All right, so what we want to do is add the section for the images at the bottom. So we do a section class of images. And we're going to loop through our data for the posts. So to do that, you do hash posts. And that's going to loop through all of them. And then for each of them, we'll have an image URL, a comment, an ID, and a likes. So we'll add the only thing that's going to be a grid, so we'll just have the image in there. So we do a div with class of food image. And we'll do the same thing that we did up here with the style background. But instead we'll add the, since we're looping through this array, we'll just do the image URL. All right. So let's save that. Great. Now we need to tie some data to it. So we're going to do exactly what we did with the collection, but we're going to make a model instead. Let's go ahead and open up our collection, food collection. We're going to do essentially the same thing, but just make it a model. And it's going to be the user model. And instead of data.feed, we're going to use data.user. Say that as the user model. Now, there's a couple ways you can pass it to the view. Since we're using a child view manager, let's just go ahead and go to our home view. All right, so we'll do import user model from app/models/user model. And then we'll just use that as the profile image. Profile views model. So you can pass that here. All right, so there we go. Now we're passing the posts, so the posts are getting there. We can scroll and see all of them. The image isn't showing up, so let's make sure that our text matches what the data has. So data, we've got profile image here under user. In our template, since we just copied it, it's just using user.profileimage. We actually just want to use profile image. And there we go. All right, so what we want to happen here is when we tap on one of these images, it will navigate to a whole new page that doesn't have a tab bar. So we don't use the child view manager again. We actually want to navigate to a new URL. But we want that URL to actually have all the content that's in here. So we can just reuse the same food view and pass this, instead of being the food view, we'll have it be a page view. So there's a couple ways to do this. The way I'm going to do it is we have this page wrapper view that we added earlier. And we're going to just map the same header view to it that we used in the previous one, but we're going to allow it to have that back button. And then we're just going to render the feed view to it. You can make this extensible so that you can pass whatever view you want to it, and we may just go ahead and do that. So to get started, we'll basically add the same header view that we have. So I'm going to open up the home view and just copy this guy in there. Same exact thing. And bring over the header view. Then we are going to check a couple things. We're going to say if there is a model, so this dot model, and the model has a view, so this dot model dot view, then we're going to map a child view. So this dot map child view, and we'll render it to some element and pass it the T view of this dot model dot view, and then the model is going to just be this dot model. So let's open up the template for page wrapper view, which we have over here. Bring this guy over here. And we'll make this content. All right, so all we're going to do is add the header view and content. Since we already have header view, we'll just go ahead and open up home, copy this guy. Actually, just copy both. We'll give this guy a class of content. All right, and that's all we need for the wrapper view, since all it is wrapping our view that we pass it and giving it a header. All right, so to make this into an actual view you can navigate to, we're going to go ahead and open up app.js. And if you remember, we had this food route. We're actually going to make that into a unique ID. Now for this case, we don't actually need this because we're using mock data, but if you're using real data from a server, each photo would have its own unique identifier tied to it. So we're going to go ahead and mock that out as if it's coming from a real server. So that takes this parameter of ID, and it goes to food in home controller. And home controller has food, which is taking right now food view. We're going to go ahead and make that into the page wrapper view that we just made. So page wrapper view. I'm going to set that as the view that we render. And then we're also going to set, we're going to create a new model. So we'll just use a mock for right now. And set the view to food view. All right, so we can go ahead and take a look and see if that's actually working now. So we can go over here, and if we go to the food, we can see we are rendering a blank food page. Doesn't have any likes, doesn't have the image. It's missing some data, but it is rendering. So next we'll want to actually tie in the correct data to this. And the way we'll do that is we'll execute a route from the main view to this view. So let's go back over here and look at profile view. So right now this isn't doing anything. Go back to the root, and when you tap on one of these images, we want to execute a route to the next one. So let's go back and look at our profile view. And we'll need to map an event just like we did previously. So we'll do this.map event. And that's when you touch a food image. We're going to do this.onTapFood. I'm going to go ahead and open up over here the profile template so that we know exactly what we're editing. So if you notice, we have this tap on food image right here. What do we want it to do? Well, we want to know which one we tapped. So the way we can know that is by adding a data attribute of the current index. So we'll say data index, just like we did previously. And we'll set that to $IDX. We also want to know what the ID is. Now, like I just mentioned, this isn't real data, so we don't technically need this, but I'm adding it in here just for anyone that wants to actually try and hook this up to a real server. We'll save that and we'll go back over to our profile view. And then when you tap a food, we want to check the posts. So let's just put a breakpoint in here again. All right, so when you tap that, we hit that breakpoint. So we can look at our current target, and we've got the index and the ID of the image that we tapped. So what we can do is, if we look at, we can import router from Lavaca. Just like we have view, we'll import router. And we can execute a route to food / the ID, which we have as e.currentTarget.dataset.index. I'm sorry, .id. All right, so let's go see if that worked. One thing I'd suggest when editing your URLs, if you're using the Webpack dev server for auto reloading, you won't get the URL updates. So if we go in here and we click profile, we click on an image, we notice that it does update to food with the correct ID. Right now we don't have an easy way to get back, aside from using the browser back, but if we notice we do that, it goes and shows the slide animation of back. All right, so the last thing to do for this is we need to pass the model of the item that we click to the new view so that we have data in this view. The way we do that is we go over to Profile View. We're going to import a tool from Mount called Merge. So we just do import merge from mount/object, and then we're going to create our model here. So we're basically wanting this structure to be transformed into this structure, which is, it's almost there. Basically, we just need to pop user and put it down here like this, right? So we'll take our user, and this, the model of the profile view is the user model. So we'll say let model equal merge, and then we're going to take the user, since we need to have a user here, and we'll set the user to this dot model, and then we're going to merge that with this dot model dot posts, since we have posts here. Then we need the index, so we'll use the same index here. All right, and then we'll pass that in here as a model. So you can pass in parameters with your exec, and in this case, we're going to pass in a model and set that to the variable model. To access those parameters, you go into your home controller, and right now we're just creating a model that has a view of food view. But it's going to be tied to params right here. So we basically want our model of this view to be a food collection, but we don't want to use food collection because that's a singleton. So we're just going to import collection from Lavaca, and then we're going to use the params.model because that's the parameter that we passed, and have that create a new collection. So new collection, and then it's going to use basically only one model in the array of the data, and so we're going to set this to the model, and then later we will set the view to the food view. All right. And so the last thing we want to do is double check to make sure that you're actually passing a params.model before you try and use it. So we can use a ternary operator where we do params and params.model. So if that exists, use collection and create a new one. Otherwise, set it to null. And then if it is null, so model, if there's no model, then we'll return promise.resolve. I'm sorry, reject. And basically this, since these require you to return a promise, you're setting, if there is no model passed to this view, reject it and don't go to that view. All right, so now let's save that and see if it works. All right, and it looks like we're getting everything for the user, but the actual data is not there. So let's take a look and see what's going on with that. All right, so let's go back into profile view. And, oh, I see it. We're using the ID here instead of the index. Basically what that's doing is in our profile view, when you tap on one of them, it's grabbing the data ID instead of the data index when we're wanting the index in the array. So let's save that and try it again. Great. All right, now we have the view passing the model to the new view. The last thing we need to do is go into this header and add a back button so that we don't have to use the browser's back button to navigate backwards. So let's hop over into our header view, and basically all we're going to do is basically say if it says to show back, then we're going to show back, otherwise we'll show the logo. So there's a few different ways to build the back functionality. You can just do a history.back on tap by opening up the page wrapper view and adding a tap event up here, mapping that to history.back. So you just say history.back, right? Basically on tap, do that. But there is another way, since you can just use A tags, so like an A href, to link something. You can just say A href equals back, and then rel equals back. And then we'll create our button. And we'll end our tags. And then we need to go into the page wrapper view and basically set model.showBack to true. Like I said, there's a bunch of different ways you could manage that, but this is just the easiest for this test case. All right, so let's try it out. Oh, and there we go. We have our back button. When we tap it, it goes back. That, I think, wraps it up for the router section of this tutorial series. In the next video, we're going to go over some native functionality by using the camera down here to pop up the native camera controls, have you take a picture, and append that to the top of your list.